Khrushchev's reign ended on October 16, 1964. Soviet newspapers announced his departure, citing age and health. Leonid Brezhnev was named successor that very day. But that official story hid a deeper truth. Khrushchev didn't choose to step down. He was removed by those closest to him. This is the story of the men who planned it, and how they achieved it without a single shot. Khrushchev rose to power by exposing Stalin's terror. In 1953, Stalin died. 3 years later, he revealed Stalin's atrocities in a secret speech. This speech stunned delegates and led to prisoner releases. For a brief period, the Soviet Union felt change was possible. By 1962, that hope had vanished. The Cuban Missile Crisis ended with a Soviet retreat. His colleagues noted the USSR accepted all US conditions. On the world stage, it appeared as a significant setback. His agricultural initiatives were also faltering badly. The Virgin Land Scheme, his flagship project, had utterly collapsed. By 1964, the Soviet Union was importing grain. They were purchasing wheat from the United States and Canada. The nation intended to surpass capitalism was relying on it. Moreover, his behavior had become increasingly erratic. Khrushchev made major decisions without consulting the Politburo. He divided the party structure without discussion. This move disrupted careers and power bases at all levels. He often humiliated his colleagues in public forums. In the summer of 1964, he spoke of a complete reshuffle post-vacation. Hearing this, the men already planning his removal acted faster. The official announcement claimed Khrushchev retired. Poor health and old age were cited. He was 70 and had met a foreign diplomat that morning. Yet, no one truly believed the stated reasons. Two distinct groups were working towards the same objective. By the summer of 1964, they had joined forces. The first was Leonid Brezhnev, a Central Committee secretary. He was considered the party's second most powerful figure. From around April 1964, Brezhnev orchestrated discreet operations. These meetings took place at his Zavidovo hunting lodge near Moscow. He made frequent phone calls and private meetings. His focus was identifying reliable individuals for the plan. When sending party workers to gauge regional sentiment, he instructed them to phrase it as support for Khrushchev's policies. He sought to avoid any hint of opposition. His aim was to gather candid information. He also wanted to leave no direct evidence of his intentions. The second group comprised Alexander Shelypin and Vladimir Semichastny. Shelypin had led the KGB, then the Party State Control Committee. This committee held oversight over the party, government, and military. Semichastny was currently leading the KGB. He was Shelypin's protege since their youth league days. They believed Khrushchev was not just failing. He was actively dismantling the very structures they had built. Brezhnev commanded the extensive party network. Shelypin and Semichastny controlled the security apparatus. Neither faction could proceed without the other's cooperation. However, even united, they faced two significant obstacles. Marshal Malinovsky, the defense minister, had to ensure the army's neutrality. In 1957, Khrushchev had overcome a vote against him. He achieved this by appealing to the full Central Committee. Zhukov flew in supporters to Moscow to guarantee that vote. This critical avenue had to be completely blocked this time. And Mikhail Suslov, the chief party ideologist, was essential. His approval lent legitimacy to any action taken. Without him, their plan would simply be a criminal act. When Suslov learned of their scheme, his lips reportedly turned pale. He questioned their plan, fearing a potential civil war. Despite his initial apprehension, he eventually joined them. Vladimir Semichastny's primary role was Khrushchev's protection. This was not merely a symbolic duty. The KGB's Ninth Directorate was specifically tasked with this. Their mandate included monitoring and safeguarding Soviet leaders. This covered every meeting and phone call. It extended to every single movement they made. If anyone plotted against Khrushchev, Semichastny's organization was meant to detect and report it. Semichastny was only 37 years old. Khrushchev himself had personally appointed him to this crucial role. Every morning, Semichastny compiled the intelligence brief. This file informed Khrushchev about global events and suppressed others. He was also fully aware of Brezhnev's activities at Zavidovo. He knew this because he was an active participant in the plot. Had he made just one phone call to inform Khrushchev, the coup would almost certainly have failed. Khrushchev had previously defeated a presidium majority. He possessed the knowledge and experience to fight back. The plotters were well aware of this fact. Securing the KGB's involvement was not just a tactical advantage. It formed the entire foundation of their plan. According to Semichastny's own published memoirs, Brezhnev inquired at one point about the possibility of killing Khrushchev. Semichastny firmly refused this suggestion that represented the single boundary he would not cross. The overthrow remained bloodless. This was not due to the plot leader's desire for peace. It was because the man tasked with the coup's execution refused to kill. October 12, 1964. Khrushchev was on vacation at his Black Sea dacha. That afternoon, Mikhail Suslov contacted him from Moscow. He cited agricultural policy requiring Khrushchev's immediate attention. He was immediately brought to a presidium meeting which had already been ongoing without his presence. What unfolded on October 13th and 14th was not a discussion. It was a conviction. Suslov initiated it by reading a prepared accusation from the entire presidium and secretariat, with all charges pre-approved. Then Shelypin came forward, asserting that Khrushchev's leadership, overall, had acted against the interests of the Soviet populace. Following that was Polyansky's lengthy report, 50 pages detailing foreign policy blunders, the Cuban withdrawal, and 128 official luncheons and receptions in just 1 year, all paid for by the party. And the one that hit the hardest. While Khrushchev had spent years denouncing Stalin for a personality cult, his own image had appeared in Pravda 147 times within a single year. Stalin's image had appeared only 6 times throughout the publication's entire history. The nation that was supposed to surpass America in grain production was now actually purchasing grain from America. Khrushchev's son-in-law, Alexei Adzubiai, was in the room. He later recounted that Khrushchev sat slumped in a seat, head bowed, eyes downcast, appearing remarkably diminished, as though his robust physical strength had suddenly vanished. A single individual spoke in his defense. Anastas Mikoyan, a longtime associate, proposed that Khrushchev might continue in a reduced capacity. His suggestion was rejected. Khrushchev responded defensively. He conceded that some criticisms were valid, but the votes were not in his favor. The military remained neutral. The KGB was aligned with the opposition. And there was no intervention from the Central Committee this time, as Brezhnev's faction had spent the preceding 6 months discreetly influencing those very Central Committee members. First, Yuri Andropov, who would later head the KGB and eventually lead the nation himself, was questioned afterward about the lack of support from anyone at the plenum. His response: "Did you not note how many members of the plenum had been appointed during Khrushchev's tenure?" On October 14th, the Central Committee officially ratified the decision. Khrushchev lost both positions simultaneously, first secretary and chairman of the Council of Ministers. That evening, his photograph was removed from the Hotel Moskva. Across Red Square, celebratory banners were being erected for the Voskhod cosmonauts. The team that had commenced their mission 2 days prior, the very individuals Khrushchev had personally telephoned from his country home to congratulate, mere hours before Suslov summoned him back to Moscow. When Russian archivists gained access to the original documents decades later, they discovered an element that the official historical account omitted. 2 distinct transcripts of the October 14th Central Committee plenum are in existence. There is the official published version, released by the Soviet state, and the verbatim stenographic record captured live during the proceedings. They depict entirely different meetings. Within the official record, no open debate took place, as participants spontaneously concurred against it. However, the raw transcript reveals that Brezhnev instructed them to refrain from debate. He personally issued that directive. The appearance of spontaneity was fabricated later on. Khrushchev's silence is presented in the official account as his personal decision. The verbatim record clearly indicates this was not the case, and Brezhnev's proposal for the position of First Secretary is officially characterized as a natural agreement among those present. In the unedited record, his nomination occurred immediately, right at the beginning, precisely as planned. They executed the coup. Subsequently, they altered the official minutes. In a society lacking a free press, where no one could contest the official narrative, they still falsified the transcript. That is something to ponder. These individuals felt the need to present the event as something other than what it was, even in an environment where external examination was impossible. Following October 14th, the public stance was collective leadership, with Brezhnev as first secretary, Kosygin as premier, and Podgorny as head of state. Power was supposedly shared. The Khrushchev era had concluded. Within several months, Brezhnev made it evident that he had no intention of sharing anything. By the beginning of 1965, Shelypin was initiating actions. He delivered public speeches advocating for the restoration of order, utilizing his control over the party-state machinery to build support. Brezhnev perceived this and acted preemptively. December 6, 1965. Shelypin was removed from his leadership position. The committee was disbanded. He retained his seat on the Politburo, but his power base was eliminated. Semichastny was the next target. In May 1967, Brezhnev exploited the defection of Stalin's daughter, Svetlana Alalieva, to the United States as a justification, presenting it as a KGB security lapse that provided him with the opportunity he sought. Semichastny was dismissed and reassigned to a subordinate role within the Ukrainian government. No influence, no possibility of returning. 2 months after that, Shelypin was demoted to lead the All-Union Council of Trade Unions. This position offered no security responsibilities, no political leverage, and no avenue for reinstatement. The individuals who had facilitated Brezhnev's rise were now removed. Brezhnev governed the Soviet Union for 18 years, a tenure second only to Stalin's. There were no significant reforms, no fundamental structural changes, a gradual deterioration that went unaddressed. He possessed a deeper understanding of Soviet power than anyone around him. Once in command, he largely employed that comprehension solely to maintain his existing position. Khrushchev spent his final 7 years as a closely monitored private citizen. He secretly dictated his memoirs. The recordings were smuggled to the West and published while he was still alive. Upon his passing on September 11, 1971, Pravda briefly acknowledged it with a single sentence. He was referred to as a retired individual. No title was given. No mention was made of his accomplishments or what had been inflicted upon him. Simply, a retired individual. That was the extent of it. Before he passed away, someone inquired why he hadn't contested the outcome more vigorously, why he had accepted the judgment rather than attempting to contact his supporters and regain his standing. He responded, "I am pleased that, at long last, the party has matured sufficiently to oversee any individual." Individual. Interpret that statement as you see fit. Now, who was truly responsible for orchestrating this? For many years, Western analysts attributed it to Suslov. He was regarded as the hidden power broker, central to every Soviet power struggle since Stalin's era. His name is listed in the official records as the individual who opened the October 14th plenum and delivered the indictment. Without his approval, the action lacked legitimacy. However, the memoirs and party documents that surfaced after 1991 present a more complex narrative. Suslov lent it official sanction. Malinovsky ensured the army's neutrality. Shelypin and Semichastny provided the necessary security backing and, at the critical moment, the courage. Petro Shelyst, the head of the Ukrainian Communist Party, who was privy to these events, identified Brezhnev and Podgorny as the principal instigators. Semichastny's memoirs stated plainly, "We essentially had to physically urge a hesitant Brezhnev to make the call." Brezhnev established the operation. He managed the endeavor for 6 months, and when the decisive moment arrived, he hesitated. The individuals around him propelled him forward. If you remove any single one of them from the equation, the plan would not have succeeded. Which precisely explains why, once it proved successful, Brezhnev dedicated the subsequent year to removing each and every one of them. Brezhnev established the network and managed the operation for half a year before hesitating. Those accompanying him urged him onward. Now, remove any one individual from this group. The scheme would not succeed. This is precisely the reason that after its success, Brezhnev spent the following 12 months eliminating each and every one of them.